our guests. So I would just like to start by one. Maybe you can just tell me some words about yourself and like just like what motivates you and so on.
Hi everybody, this is Wan from Beijing, China. I am the co-founder of Project Guangyuan. I co-found Project Guangyuan with my friends during the COVID-19 in March 2020. We were so shocked by the education digital divide in China, and we would like to do something. Uh, we aim to help underprivileged children and communities by providing secondhand digital devices and supporting software systems so that they can have access to the online education and more quality education opportunities. Beyond my role in Project Guangyuan, I'm a consultant at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So basically, I'm working on vaccine and regulatory reforms, which is another way to facilitate equality in the health sector. So it's a great pleasure to be invited for this talk, and I'm looking forward to having discussions with you guys.
Thanks a lot also for joining us. And actually, Van, she's now in China. So for her, it's now 11 p.m. So also like really thank you for making it today, like also at this difficult time, really. And our next guest. And our next guest is Bushra from the Global Shapers Ankara Hub. Maybe you could also like just give a brief introduction of yourself.
Thank you so much, Yasemin, and welcome all to our guests. I'm so happy to have you in here and to have a chat about this topic. I'm working in Turkey, in Ankara, in the capital, as a customer success account manager at Microsoft. And this is a really good topic that, I mean, you also give a really good introduction about it, since working in an IT company also brings some social responsibilities, even especially in the pandemic times. So I would like to also give my opinions about it in the following sessions. Again, thank you so much for having us here. And we also have a discussion about digital equity and the digital gap in our hub as well. And hopefully we will have the same great discussion here as well.
Yeah, thank you, Bushra, for also joining. And I'm also excited to like hear about the insights, what we can also get from the private sector as well. Our next guest is, I think, Miguel. Maybe you can also like just a few words about yourself.
Sure, Jasmine. Thank you for organizing. Well, as you can see in the slide, I am a Global Shapers member of the Madrid hub here in Spain. Currently I'm working in Amazon as a lead management manager in the marketplace. And around this topic, what we have done in Madrid has been a very similar project to what one has highlighted in her project, Guangyuan. What we do is we pick up used computers from companies and we give them to schools that need them here in Madrid. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I mean we have done a good job. I think it's a pretty easy project. I guess that one could say the same. So happy to talk about this and how does this impact in Spain.
Thank you, Miguel. So I think Maxwell is on mute, but I think he tried to like introduce himself. I think Maxwell would be the next one from Aflatun International. Also, thank you for making it today.
Hi, Yasmin. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me to this event. My name is Maxwell. I'm the digital learning and team lead in Aflatun. As some of you may be aware, Aflatun caters to a wide range of audience in over 100 countries. And the motivation for me has been, how do you create something that can be reused across all these countries without necessarily spending so much money? And so our work in financial education, life skills, and also gender equality, of course, has spanned across these. And we're trying our best to make sure that indeed we are able to bring more people into the fold as far as financial education life is concerned. and also getting people informed. I've been doing this for the last close to, let's say, 10 years as well, working in private companies, working with technology universities, creating content that is agnostic, of course, and also looking at technology platforms, educational tech platforms, and how to scale up using, creating very low cost content. So just a brief one about myself. I'm happy to meet you all and looking forward to contributing to this. Of course, I'm sure Yasmin will also do a more intro, so I'm not.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Maxwell. This was like a short insight, but we will just the next point will be actually getting doing a dive this NGO work. And now we have a rather local guest from Stuttgart. That's Maike. So Maike is the co-initiator of the Hey Alter Stuttgart initiative, which is also in a similar direction as the other initiatives. So maybe you could also give short words about yourself before later doing a deep dive into your project.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel honored to have the opportunity to present our project to such an inspiring and international audience today. That's awesome. So currently I work as a research assistant at the University of Hohenheim, which is located in Stuttgart. And as you just said, together with my 4 teammates, I initiated Hey Alter Stuttgart. And I think some of you may wonder what Hey Alter actually means. So Alter is the German word for old. So what it says here is old computers for young people. And Hey Alter is something like saying, hey dude or hey mate. It somehow feels like explaining your own joke. No one understands. And since you have to explain it, all the magic is gone. But we will dive deeper into that later, I guess. So thank you again.
You're welcome, Maike. And we're also very excited to gain deeper insights into this topic. I think also thank you for making it all, because as you can see, the panelists, they really have diverse backgrounds. So we have the people from the private sector, but also people from NGOs as well, and also local initiatives. So actually this shows that the problem and that the extent of this problem is not also really concentrated on several areas, but really present on various levels. So for this, we would just now, after giving this introduction, like to start with gaining deeper insights into the work of the NGO and different projects. So we would actually like to start with the Aflatun International as an NGO. So here in this case, we would like to gain insights into the work of the NGO, and which is actually active with a social franchising model, where it partners with international organizations in implementing its model. And it has been active in 105 countries up to date, and reached over 10 million of children worldwide. So I would just now like to give Maxwell this stage so that he can give us insights into the work of Aflatun International. If he's there. Yeah, I think you're there. You can just share your screen. Just a moment. I will just. Yeah, perfect. I think we can all see your screen now.
Maxwell, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, so we can hear you now.
Right, there are a couple of distractions. Yes, so I'm here to present to you Aflatun's approach to what we found out during the COVID and how we addressed it or are addressing it, and intend to do so in the coming years. Just a brief one about Aflatun. Aflatun started in Mumbai, in India, 1991, by a very intelligent woman called Jeru Bilimoria, who was conducting an action-based research for Tata School in India. And by 2005, we had incorporated in the Netherlands. And by 2008, we're implementing a social franchise model that was looking at how to scale up financial education life skills at a very low cost, as I've said. And within 2016 and 2021, of course, this year, we have reached 10.5 million children and young people. And as you can see below, UNICEF and UNDP are a couple of the major partners that we work with, and also donors who are supporting Aflatun's approach to education and training. And one of the things we're known for doing is creating curricula. And we target from 3 to 6 years old, which we call the Aflatot, and then from 6 to 12 years called the Aflatun, and then from 12 to 14 called the Aflatin and the Aflatin Plus, and of course from 16 plus to all the way to 24. And as well, we do create digital skills curricula, and we do a lot of training. And what makes Aflatun training unique is that we put the child at the center of the training. So it's not a case of the trainer or the teacher just giving information to the participants. Rather, there's a bit of a play and engagement and fun activities around how we conduct the training. And as you can see on your right, a bit of the activities that Aflatun pictures from our training. And I need to say that prior to COVID, almost all our trainings were face-to-face. So we flew from the Netherlands, or we had partners stationed, we had trainers stationed across specific geographic areas who would fly into a country to go and deliver training. And so that was our approach prior to COVID-19. Now, as soon as the COVID hit, one thing that we did in Aflatun is to conduct a quick survey to see what, to test the waters, and of course, find out what the challenges were for our partners on the ground, and also how they were going through. And the numbers on your screen speaks to it. As you can see, we found out that a lot of the projects had stopped, whilst part of the most of the partners were also trying to find different ways to continue to deliver the training, because they were used to conducting these trainings face-to-face. As well, we noticed that they were trying to share content or continue their engagement via SMS and also in-person training, but then you keep your social distance. They were sharing content via WhatsApp and Viber. They were using social media to share content. They were using radio. I have to say at this point that our partners were doing very well by themselves. And it so happens that they needed extra support in order to transition from doing everything face-to-face to doing it online, or combining it in this case. And we also noticed that they had built communities using regular phone calls or even SMS, or creating groups on WhatsApp and Viber and all those social media platforms. And as I said in the beginning, our approach has been being able to create what we call the social franchise model. And what that basically does is that we provide support to our partners in country, who then reach these children and young people who need financial education and life skills. So the question to us when we found out this big gap was, how do we meet our partners at the point where they need our help the most? How do we continue to engage the larger network? And how do we provide something to the learners who may have devices, who may not, who may have internet access, who probably wouldn't, and who sometimes get periodic access to device or internet or in between? And so this is what we decided to do. We decided to create content that is agnostic, that is low cost, but then with high scale up impact or high scale capability. And what that basically means is that when Aflatun creates content, what you see is not just content, but different things you can do with one content. And to address the issue of offline, online challenges, we decided that whatever content we created to help the partners bridge this gap has to serve both online and offline purposes. So whether the person has internet or not, they equally deserve to have access to this content. And the second thing that we also thought of is, once we create the content, people should have the option to modify the content in every way that suits their context. because we've noticed that usually when you see digital content, it's mostly wholesale. What you see is what you get. You cannot make any change to it. But we wanted to give the beneficiary something extra, that whatever Affleton gives you, you can edit it, you can adapt it, either to suit for SMS delivery, or for chatbot delivery, or for mobile apps, or for web app, again, for TV or radio, and again, online or offline. And then one thing we also thought of is, okay, once people have the option to edit this content, then automatically they should be able to contextualize. So the way we create the content, there's always room for you to add something extra. Adding something extra wouldn't take away from the original content that we give you. That way, if people or the beneficiaries also have an idea of what they wish to learn during that unfortunate period, they can add their own content to it and deliver it in a way that makes sense to them. And of course, at the end of the day, even though, as we are aware, the COVID hit unexpectedly, we notice also that, as much as there's a lot of platforms, or should I say mobile application, they also lack content. So you find partners who would probably have access to some app, but no content, or some app, but then the app usually functions in a way that possibly is not compatible, let's say it's COM or HTML5. And so we thought of all these things as far as trying to bridge this gap is concerned. And the last part of what we thought of is also to create something that is ready-made and ready to use. So in that case, if someone feels or finds the need that, okay, I just want to use content to reach children and young people, to engage my partners in this COVID time, that's all I need. I don't need it to be edited or contextualized in any way. That part is also equally available. And that is the holistic approach we took as far as tackling the gap was concerned. And I have to say, based on what Yasmin said, that our approach to tackling the divide was geared more towards content. It's important that I emphasize that. And as I said in the beginning, Affleton conducts a lot of training. So one thing we decided to do now is to move all our training that is face-to-face to online. And so myself together with the team, we came up with a structure for conducting online training. And we started doing it around March 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And we, being so good, the partners accepted it. We saw a high take-up rate. And for the up to, as at this time that I'm talking to you, we've conducted 16 plus trainings on the partner platform. We've trained over 500 trainers and educators. And we have a platform that partners can deliver the training via. That's very important. Now, we also noticed that a lot of the partners who were interested in being trained on the platforms did not have the digital know-how, in quotes, to be able to even deliver the training after we conducted the training. So one thing we also did is to organize training on how to facilitate online. So how do you take your everyday face-to-face engagement to an online platform without losing the necessary skills or engagement that you would get if you were to do it face-to-face? And the second thing that we did in bridging the gap is to build the capacity of the trainers and the teachers and our network partners by creating a digital skills course, very basic, how to use the browser, how to connect to the internet, how to access your email, how to use Zoom, how to use Skype. Build a course, very basic and straight to the point, that help the partners and the teachers to be comfortable enough to even transition from receiving the training all the way to engaging the learner. And of course, we have courses around financial education, digital social skills. How do you, if you pick a platform like Facebook, for example, or even LinkedIn, what is it about Facebook and LinkedIn that you can use to drive engagement or even engage learners as well? And we created a course to help teachers and trainers do that as well. And we looked at the implementation approach. And what that basically means is that if you pick Affleton's curricula, how do you teach it, or how do you conduct the training on it online as though you were doing it face-to-face. Also, we created a course like that helped the teachers and trainers to learn from how it can be done online by comparing to the face-to-face one, similar to the active teaching learning methods as well. And as I mentioned in the beginning, Aflatun conducts a lot of active teaching learning methods. Basically, it's very activity heavy, so it works best in face-to-face or in real life. And so we created courses that showed how to pick those activities and do them online. So for example, an energizer that would normally do where people possibly throw a ball to someone, and then the person catches the ball and introduces themselves and talks about what they expect from a training. What we basically did as an example is that whilst everyone's camera is on and everyone is connected, we would say, maybe you can turn your camera to the window and show us what you can see in the window, or touch anything in your environment that starts with a B or something like that. We created all these things just to continue to bring that excitement and engagement to the online environment. And as I said in the beginning also, Aflatun is a network of partners. We actually call it a movement. And so within the space that we've created, our partners are able to still share experiences without traveling. They are able to organize events online and invite others to it. At the same time, the engagement that partners had face-to-face continued on the online platform that we set up as a way of us bridging the gap and giving our partners the space that they can continue to train and make sure that activities don't halt. And one thing that we're also working towards is to digitalize all our paper-based curricula. What that basically means is that if you cannot travel to a location to receive a training, what we're basically doing is to convert all the active teaching learning methods to a video that shows you how the activity can be done or is done in real life, so that by yourself in the comfort of your home, you can watch the video and learn and take quizzes and everything else. And of course, so that when it's done in real life, or if you're going to implement it, you have a fair idea of how everything looks. This is the first step of our approach to bridging the divide. Now, the second thing we did is that we looked at the children and teenagers and young adults and asked ourselves, what can we do to support them, right? Because not everyone will be plugged into an organization that is linked to Aflatun. So what we did is to create content, keyword agnostic, that can sit on any platform. That's the first thing. That is platform also friendly. So should I say device friendly? In this case, our content is integrated into a Facebook Messenger. You can access Aflatun content there. Our content is also can be taught live on Facebook. There's a social part of Facebook that can be used to set up a very nice learning environment where you can teach our content there. And the classic case is something we did with Children International in the Philippines with over 95% success rate. And there's talk of scaling it up within Philippines and its neighboring countries as well. And I talked about also agnostic in the sense that any app out there that is built to learn can integrate Aflatun content on it. That way, if a child doesn't have, say, does not want to use Facebook or WhatsApp or any other platform, or is possibly glued to a specific app, what Aflatun approach to building this did or is doing is that you can put our content onto any app and the learner can still access it. One thing we noticed as part of the research is that people already have a preference for a specific app. They prefer to use a specific app. They are comfortable, they don't want to change it. Now, if you try to change the attitude by moving them to a different app, you wouldn't get the sort of traction or engagement you desire. So our approach was to build the content rather for the platform or the space that the children or the learners were comfortable living or engaging. And we also looked at game-based learning. As it stands now, Aflatun has 2 games out. The first one is based on a Dawn of Civilization concept and is out. We're testing it in 5 countries. It should be coming live by mid-July. And of course, we launched it in February, I believe in February this year. And by this time, we've had 16,000 mini lessons. And it's also available on Telegram, by the way, as well. So we also veered into game-based learning, where we're creating different kinds of games on financial literacy or entrepreneurship. That would also help the learners to still be able to acquire the experience or knowledge as far as learning is concerned. And one thing that we also did is to expand our expertise in a way that we're able to support the development of more e-learning content. So in this case, we're building content for UNICEF across different, we did it for UNICEF Jordan, we're doing it for trainers in UNICEF Egypt, we're doing it for UNICEF Gulf area, even integrating our content onto the Learning Passport, which is now like the biggest learning platform that UNICEF is implementing as well. And one thing that we also try to do is that we made our content editable. So for example, if you pick an Aflatun content, you can change, you can switch heads, you can change faces, you can add text, you can take away text, you can change backgrounds in a way that suits your context and your environment. And it can be delivered on different platforms. In this case, we've done it with Colibri, produced by Learning Equality. We're doing it with our partner, Skillet, based in the Netherlands, also implementing in Ghana and other African countries as well. And this was also our approach as far as meeting children and teenagers and young adults, bridge the divide is concerned. Now, the way we sustain this response or this approach is that we have is that integration of our content to almost every platform you can think of. Now, what makes this successful compared to other things is that when most companies or organizations create their content, that raw file version is an intellectual property, so they do not want to let go of it. Aflatun, on the other hand, give these out for free. So you can take it, you can edit it, you can contextualize it in any way you want and let it sit on any environment that suits you. One thing we also did, and we are still doing, is to build communities of practice around the different content and different approaches, for example. So if you are talking about a partner platform in this case, we have teachers who are still engaging and talking about how they are implementing the Aflatun, the editable content on the ground and sharing experiences as well. At the same time, we're building capacity. So I mentioned the case of Children International in Philippines. We trained close to 25, they call them coaches from Children International, who in turn are going to train other trainers and increase that their capacity, of course, and to make sure that they continuously implement the content across the country and its environs as well. And the last thing is, as I said, Aflatun content is free for distribution. As long as you're connected to the Aflatun network, which of course we're happy and arms wide open, waiting for anyone who is willing and available to partner with us, to join the network, of course. At the same time, we involve our partners in pilot and test. Aflatun does not test or pilot at any of the initiatives I mentioned outside of the network. Anyone who is available, we invite, but we involve our partners in the development so that they give us feedback and feel a part of the whole creation process. That is one thing that we do very well. And we also recommend them to donors, for example. So if we intend to, let's say, create game, in this case, we need a partner who has interest in game-based learning or gamification to help us do this. And we recommend such partners through the test and the pilot. We get to know who is geared more towards game-based learning and who has other interests. And then we sort of recommend them for funding on different things going forward as well. Now, this is our working module. Everything I've talked about comes down to this. If you pick an Aflatun content, you can put it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any platform out there that supports learning. At the same time, we've put our content on platforms that are partners who do not have access to platforms or wish they had access to a platform but cannot find one or don't have the means to acquire one. We've put the content there and made it available for them to either edit or to use as is. A classic example is the Monkiri app again. Monkiri has a CMS that we put our content there, and you can go there and change the content in any way you want and export it specifically for your environment. That's the first thing. The other thing is that you can edit our content to the right. You can edit our content. Individuals are picking our content and editing it and adapting it and distributing it for various uses. For example, for smartphones, for feature phones, for tablets, for desktops, for laptops, for mobile apps, for web apps, for SMS delivery, for chatbot integration as well. At the same time, our partners have picked our content, and I mentioned the case of Stuttgart International, and built a model around it to continue to engage the learners. In this case, this becomes a facilitator-led training. So through our content, you can do a self-paced learning option for learners through the apps I mentioned, or our partners, as some of them have done, have built a whole training module around our content and are implementing, even as we speak, through platforms like Facebook and even WhatsApp and even Telegram, as I said. At the same time, our partners are continuously training based on the training they receive from us and the courses that we've created. They are continuously training other trainers, building their capacity, making sure that they increase their digital literacy and digital skills, that they are comfortable enough to conduct either the facilitator-led training or guide them in the self-directed training option. And building engagement around this, and of course, the communities of practice also ongoing. Now, going forward, one thing Aflaton is trying to do is to ensure inclusivity in our content. We notice that there are a lot of people who are usually left behind if you think about bridging the gap and also moving forward, looking into the future. So we are looking into creating more audio content as well. At the same time, we're looking at creating content that supports Braille for the visually impaired. Also, we're looking very heavily into augmented reality. And in the next 2 months, you'll be seeing products from Aflaton covering audio, Braille, and also augmented reality. I need to say this, that our approach to bridging the gap is a long-term strategy and not necessarily looked at the COVID. And I have to say this, that we have been careful not to jump on the COVID, in quote, bandwagon to ride the wave so that when the wave dies down, everything else dies down. We've thought of this very thoroughly and are very strategic in the way we are trying to bridge the gap, supporting all who may have access to internet or not, who may have access to devices or not, and who have challenges in one way or the other. And going this direction, we also receive information for our partners to make sure that at least whatever we created benefited them and benefited those who were outside of it. And of course, Aflaton content is also used by private institutions or banks and governing bodies as well. Now, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully I wasn't speaking too fast, and please feel free to ask any question that you have. Thanks, Yasmin.
Thanks a lot also, Maxwell. It was a very interesting presentation, actually, because I think the majority of us, although we are affected by this issue, we do not really get insights into how the solutions are actually conceptualized and how they are also leveraged on an international level. So, and we also saw actually that it's not always about the financials, but because you can actually gain high impact with low investment in this case. And also what we saw now is that in times of COVID, the innovation cycles, they just have to get shorter and shorter. So a very reactive NGO also. So after seeing this international conceptualization, we would like to do a more deep dive into a country-specific example. So we would now like to go to China, where our guest Van has initiated the Guangyuan initiative. So I would be very happy if she could give us some insights into the project, where they have reached over 9 schools in times of COVID, and they have received over 1,000 donations in a very short time. So yeah, here we would just like to show that actually impact does not always have to be on a very large scale, does not always depend on partnerships, but can also be realized with, so to say, a really motivated local team. So I would just like to give Van the stage now.
Thank you so much for introducing us. Hi everybody, I'm going to introduce our project Guangyuan. In a time of COVID-19 outbreak, as everybody knows, February to 2020. However, a lack of digital devices left millions of poor children in China out of school. Project Guangyuan was we established Project Guangyuan to bridge the new digital divide in education for children by donating second-hand devices such as mobile phones, tablets, and laptops, and supporting software resources. We provide an opportunity to those kids to return to class. So established on March 9, 2020, Project Guangyuan led a team of over 100 volunteers to promote donation and discovering candidate beneficiary schools and students, delivering devices and monitoring the whole impacts. As of April 4, 2020, Project Guangyuan had received over 1,000 donation pledges from both institutions and individuals, and successfully secured supply for over 10 schools, covering thousands of students in 3 provinces. Thanks to the vaccine development and delivery, which is part of my full-time job, schools started reopening, but the education digital device still exists. Therefore, we continue to narrow this gap and to facilitate education equality. So Project Guangyuan, the new version was officially launched in May, and we are dedicating our services to underprivileged communities for the better digital education. More details I will introduce later about our progress. So there are some photos from our beneficiary schools. As you can see, there are students in very low resource areas. And this is our role in the donation process. From the perspective of donors, we fund institution and individual donors so that we can provide both targeted donation in bulk or point-to-point donations. From the side of beneficiary schools, we collect their demands and we make verification with the third-party partners to make sure that each device could be sent to the hand of the kids who are in the dire need, and also we provide the free shipment support, and we supervise the whole distribution process. After we for the purpose of transparency, we also made public notifications on how many devices we donate every month and how many students are using our devices. Beyond that, we also conduct multi-platform publicity, and we are launching advocacy with our partners. So this is a more specific overview of our operation models. So the left hand is how our donors make the donations, and on the right hand you can see our functions going through. We have received donors from the following institution partners and individual donors. So we have different sorts of partnership with institutions and high schools. As of Express provides shipment support for us, so that every institutional donor who can donate over 10 devices can enjoy the free shipment. And with Google, we have organized several workshops on how to code. With AdDream organization, we are working on our registration and legal issues, and with the support of WeWork, we have set 50 on-site donation sites in 7 major cities in China, so people can go to the sites and make donations. And with the support of Stanford RIP, we have different sort of software contents, and we have more outreach to country schools. So far as of April 1, 2021, we have sent devices to 9 provinces and over 40 schools. So basically, over 10,000 students has been covered with our supply. And to decide which school should we choose, we have developed a set of selection indicators. First of all is poverty level. We will see if it is in a state level poverty county, and we'll see the percentage of needy students. Second, we'll look at the amount of senior students, especially those who are taking college entrance examination soon. Third, we'll look at the college entrance rate. We choose schools with higher college entrance if their counterpart candidate has a similar poverty level. Fourth, we'll see the local infrastructure, if the local institutions can support device delivery and online use. And the last one is third-party verifications, because in some places, in order to improve their infrastructure, students and teachers will just report some demands which are not so urgent. So we'll look for the support. We'll turn to third parties to verify the demands. So make sure the demands we made is could help the most people. So this is an internal organization structure. So we have 2 part of teams. First is the routine team, donation, demand, media, and development. They are responsible for the daily operation and the overall donation. But if we have a new project, like we are going to have a new collaboration projects with external partners, we'll have project teams, so that each volunteer could be a part of it and have their own ownership. So I think that could be a lesson that we can share with each of you, that it is a way to improve the efficiency as well as the ownership of your team members. So basically, that's my introduction, and I would like to have discussion with you in the Q&A sessions.
Thanks a lot, Van. I think that was also, again, really eye-opening, because we could really see how even a small local initiative can be so powerful in doing fast and effective solutions. And especially what was here in this case interesting is that we again saw that the digital divide is also on a country level, also between cities and rural areas. So again, you cannot say that some countries are not affected, because we still have the gap between urban and rural areas in this case. And yeah, it was very impressive to see how a small team had such a big impact. Yeah, so after having heard about these international initiatives and going to China, we would actually come back to the roots, to Stuttgart in Germany. And here in this case, we would like to have Maike from the initiative Hey Alter to introduce her project, which is also in a similar niche. So again, collecting devices, and has also received many awards in the last year because of its contributions to bridging social inequalities. And I would just like to give now Maike the stage to introduce this initiative.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I want to express my respect for all of you. It's fascinating. And what you're doing is Hey Alter on the next level. So we're smaller than your initiative, but quite similar. So let me just share the screen. All right, so I think I can best explain you what we're doing if I tell you about two people we met in the past months. So on the one hand, there's Sarah, and Sarah is 14, and Sarah loves to go to school, to meet her friends, to learn exciting new things. But with COVID-19 and the lockdown, she has to stay at home, and she has no device. She only has a smartphone, or better said, her parents have smartphones, but her parents have to work and they cannot work from home. So Sarah can only use the smartphone when either her mother or her father is at home. And that's why she missed a lot of online sessions, which is really bad for her development and for her education, basically. And on the other hand, there's Layla, and Layla is running a small business, and she has just recently equipped her employees with new devices, and not because the old ones were not working anymore, but rather because they were not fast enough anymore. And now she was wondering what she can do with these old laptops. And maybe this sounds familiar to you. Maybe you also have a laptop at home and it's actually working and you don't know what to do with it. And that's where Hey Alter comes into play. So we also, it's quite interesting. We also collect old but still functioning devices from organizations and private individuals. We restore them and we donate them to students or children with or from families having only limited access to devices and have face financial restrictions. But let me just sketch the problem again. I think that's quite clear, and maybe what's not so clear is that in Germany, 2.8 million children and juveniles are at risk of poverty. And COVID-19 school closures have, of course, widened the socioeconomic and the education gaps. And of course, distance learning poses a major challenge, probably to all of us and to all families. But I think families from underprivileged backgrounds are hit hardest. Homeschooling poses a major challenge. They have limited access or even no access to device. Sometimes they have a laptop at home, but they have 4 or 5 siblings and only one device. And of course, this can't be handled with just one device. Now, there were some policy measures in Germany I quickly want to show you. So the government provided 500 million euros for schools to purchase tablets, laptops, etc. And these grants were then allocated according to the so-called Königsberger Schlüssel to the 16 federal states of Germany. And then the schools could apply for financial support and then purchase these devices. And the children can now borrow these devices, and there's no formal proof of means test required. So actually, it should be quite unbureaucratic, but the reality is different because bureaucracy poses, the worst obstacle, I'd say. It really retards the process because sometimes, or some schools, and this really depends on the federal state, so some schools have to elaborate a so-called media development plan. So they have to fill in a form stating how they want to use their device, how they design their lessons so that students can really access and follow the lessons via these devices. And this, of course, is quite bureaucratic and is especially difficult for those schools who have never really thought of digitization and things like that. And imagine in school, it's a case that there's no, let's say, IT manager or something like that, as it is the case in companies. So these are basically teachers who have to do all that IT stuff besides their lessons and tutoring and so on, and their teaching. So it's an additional and extra effort they have to put in this problem. And of course, some schools do not have the capacity and some teachers don't have the capacity. So there are schools that never really thought about using digital devices for their for teaching. So this is really difficult for many schools. And after a successful application, it may take months before schools finally get these devices. So I heard about schools here in Stuttgart, they applied for devices in August and they're still waiting today. So good idea, but very, very slow process. And that's why we emerged, so to say, as a rapid response to that. And we try to make a contribution on 3 different levels. So of course, for us, equal opportunities is super important. Education should be a basic human need. And the access to digital education is part of, or should be part of this human need. And the socioeconomic background of families should not, let's say, determine their future or their ability to access quality education. And the 3rd level refers to the environmental sustainability, because we want to prolong the product life cycle of these laptops, because they are working, they are functioning, and people throw them away or they are somewhere down in the basement. So yeah, we really want to make an impact on this environmental issue as well, and raise the awareness for that as well. I have to say, Hey Alter is not my idea. So Hey Alter is a German or national-wide initiative, and it was founded in April 2020 as a direct response to these school closures. The founders are Moritz Tetzlaff and Martin Brettschneider. On a national basis or national level, we distributed already 3,692 devices. And we are active in 28 locations around or across Germany. And we won several awards, but it shouldn't be of interest here. Yeah, here you can see all the 28 locations. So in the middle, there could be someone who wants to launch Hey Alter as well. Yeah, this looks a bit sparse in the middle of Germany. Yeah, and I, together with my team, we initiated Hey Alter in Stuttgart. So it was quite in the beginning. I think it's yeah, 7th initiative. And we founded Hey Alter Stuttgart in October 2020, and we already distributed 238 devices, and we collected about 400 devices. And this discrepancy, of course, emerges because, yeah, some laptops do not work. People come to us and donate their laptops, and then we see that the keyboard doesn't work, and then things get difficult. And of course, this takes time. So as you can see on the right side, we are 5 young people. We know each other from university, and now we have all full-time jobs. So we're working at least 40 hours a week, and we do this all on a voluntary basis. And yeah, it's quite time-consuming. We spend almost every evening for this initiative, and of course every weekend basically. So right now we're thinking about how to strategically optimize the process, and we are in contact with other companies, software companies, basically. They may help us make the whole process more efficient. But the process itself is pretty easy. All you have to do is format and create a bootable USB stick. You have to download DBAN or Shredder. So this is a software which basically erases the hard disk, and then just drag the file to the USB stick. And Hey Alter, so there are many people involved that really know a lot about informatics and coding and so on. So Hey Alter provides you with an Ubuntu version. including the Hey Alter image. So on the right side, you can see how this laptop looks like, or how the desktop looks like once the computer booted or has booted. And what you cannot see is that with Ubuntu, we also install important apps, or apps basically, like Zoom client, Microsoft Teams. We also install LibreOffice. So these are all open source softwares, and they are all license free. And this enables us to really donate these laptops for free. And then you just have to tell the device to boot from the USB stick rather than from the hard disk, and you just plug in the USB stick, and the entire erasing process takes about, depending on the hard disk, about 5 hours. And then you change the USB stick, and then it boots from the Ubuntu USB stick, and this takes around, I don't know, 30 minutes, I'd say, and everything gets tested automatically. So there's a short script we then execute, and this tests whether the camera is working, whether the spot for CDs is already working, whether the computer or is able to connect to the internet. So everything is tested automatically, which makes the process quite fast. Yeah, I think this was a very short introduction into what we are doing. Again, thank you very much for having me and giving us the opportunity to present our project, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Yeah, thanks also again. So it was a short but indeed very impactful introduction also of this initiative. So thanks also for really showing that actually you do not need to be like part of an international initiative or like really large scale or like a corporation, but you can also like leverage these on a very local level, on a very voluntary basis. That's very impressive how much effort you actually put into this project in the last years. So like coming back to the title of this panel, which is like leveraging local solutions on a global level, we have actually seen like international initiatives, then a country initiative, and then like a more local initiative. So now we would like to come back on the actually more interactive part of this panel, which is the Q&A session with moderated questions. And also you can post your questions into the chat, and you can either raise your hand or you can just send it into the chat, and I can try to post them. So I would just like to initiate this by a first question to actually also gain insights on what the private sector can actually do. So we have seen this NGOs initiatives, but we also see that more and more companies in the private sector, that they also commit to CSR initiatives related to bridging the digital divide. So here I would like to ask Bushra and Miguel how actually the private sector can also benefit from such kind of initiatives. So on the one hand, it's beneficial on a socio-economic level, but on the other hand, I assume also for the corporations themselves, it's something which offers two-sided benefits. So what are your thoughts on that? Maybe Bushra first. I think Bushra, I don't know if you can hear us. I think she's on mute. No, maybe Miguel can make the beginning until she's unmuted.
Sure. My point here is not that straight. You were saying that you see some benefits for the companies. I think the benefit for the company, in our experience, comes only if the company doesn't have a contract with the laptop supplier. In our case, for instance, we have found a lot of issues picking computers from companies that had a devolution contract with HP or Lenovo, for instance, that made it impossible to pick used computers. And I honestly, I don't know what they do with those used computers, the manufacturers, but they just pick them and I don't know, they refurbish them or whatever. So that's one issue. If the company doesn't have such a contract, then it's then where you're getting makes sense, which is the like social economical benefit of the circular economy, no, which is what we are all pushing for, I guess, giving a second life to use devices. In my mind, what I've seen in Spain is that there are little companies that don't have this in practice, that they don't have like a devolution contract with the laptop suppliers, but there are some, I don't know in the rest of the world, but that's like the only thing I see feasible. We've also tried to get in touch with the suppliers themselves. You know, eventually these guys need to get rid of the computers, and maybe they are suitable for use. But we haven't had luck here. But that can be like the way to close the circle. No, go to the computer suppliers, to the manufacturers themselves, and see what do they do with these already used computers. Happy to hear other thoughts, by the way.
Yeah, very like interesting insights also, because what we usually see as the consumer is a quite different thing. So here, like in this case, was very interesting to get from a different perspective. Like maybe Bushra has also some insights into this topic. I think she managed to unmute herself.
Yes, sorry for that. I was having struggle to unmute myself. So, but first of all, I would like to thank Micah, Van, and Maxwell for the great presentations and for the great initiatives. I really love their presentations. So, so when we always talk about this, private sector look, we also have to think about the public-private partnership. And I mean, we are always saying that it's important, but I don't think that we actually know what it really is and what should we do maybe as a person to decrease this digital equity. So it's a common knowledge that private sector has many resources than public sector, but not the responsibility. They don't have the responsibility as the government itself. That's why we created the corporate responsibility stuff in the companies, like for example, Microsoft. And as the private sector grew, they have to take care not only themselves, that or their employees, but also their community or to their country or the world they're working in. So this is a stakeholder capitalism, as we all know, that we're aware from World Economic Forum as well. And it's easy to see how the new normal and the higher requirements will widen the digital divide further. And for this problem, I think we should look at this in 3 key points of views, like from the growth perspective, from the financing perspective, and from the technology perspective. And from the growth perspective, we should answer the question how public and private sectors can stimulate growth in the industry to accelerate digital development in underprivileged areas. Because we all know that we also have to focus on underprivileged areas or underprivileged regions first. And for the financing part, public and private sectors best finance the infrastructures, digitization required to enable high-speed internet in the underprivileged regions again. And the third part is the technology, third leg is the technology for sure. And we should use the technology, and especially the emerging technologies could beneficially and efficiently affect the sustainability to deliver affordable connectivity. It could be internet connectivity, it could be technological connectivity. So these 3 legs, like growth, financial part, and the technology, I think will be the points that we should look at it on to solve the problem.
I think now I was unmuted. I think now I'm unmuted. Yeah, thank you. I think that's very interesting to hear these different perspectives after we have heard like the attitudes or like the approaches from the NGOs and these initiatives. So what COVID has actually also revealed was especially the literacy gap, and specifically concerning the elderly parts of the population. So we talk about the 60 plus people. I don't want to discriminate people here, but that's like the definition of elderly people. So here, my point is that, for example, if you look at the COVID crisis, it's especially the elderly people who are most at risk of suffering from the virus. But on the other hand, they are the ones least likely to use like health tech applications, or like order things online, or do social gatherings online, for example. So sometimes they have to rely on really offline things because they just do not have the digital literacy, because they were basically not born into this generation. So what do you think actually, how could these initiatives, or also the private sector offerings, also like as a software company or as a like retailer, like what can actually be done to have a more inclusive approach in these things, like especially health tech maybe? Like how can we include people who do not have the specific digital literacy skills in times of the crisis?
Can I just jump in and take the question? Okay.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so because that's a really, really good question, and that's the topic that we should focus on, as you said. I mean, we're not discriminating, but I mean, elder people is one of the disadvantaged people in this pandemic times. And as I said, I mean, we should all have this corporate responsibility in the company as well. So Microsoft give a lot of importance to accessibility for all, since its mission is to empower every person on the planet to achieve more. And to achieve this goal, this ambitious goal, we need to divide the topic into two. So first one is to create accessibility and easiness to the design, into the software and into the technology itself, so that it will be self-explanatory and everyone could easily and simply understand and use it. And on the second part, still, I mean, after achieving this simplicity will not be enough. We're talking about elder people, so we still need to educate them. We still need to teach them how to use them. So for that, there's so many initiatives going on, even in the company itself, at the corporate level, at some local levels. So for example, in Chicago, there's a Digit Seniors program, which I love this program because the aim of the program is to increase the digital literacy at the age of, above the age of 60 and more. So some volunteers go to the elder people and teach them how to use the stuff, how to use maybe their mobile phones, and easily reach the people, the beloved ones. Or another program in Singapore, for example, it covers remote patient monitoring, mobile care, virtual consultancy. Of course, to be able to reach those people, again, some volunteer people go to these people and teach them how to use this stuff. So we're trying, at some point, we're trying to make the technology as easy as possible so that everyone could use it. But at some other point, not even the company itself will be enough. So we're working with local NGOs, local institutions or governments, and with the volunteers, so that we could reach elder people, old people, and teach them also how to use these technologies. There's another, I would just want to give another example from, again, Microsoft in Turkey. There's a new initiative. It's not about elder people, but for young people, because in Turkey we have a huge young population, and then we have they are found it difficult to find a job. So at first 25,000 young will be trained with some Microsoft technologies, and the Minister of Education involved, and the job department involved in this. So at the end of this program, 25,000 will also have the job. So again, as I said earlier, I mean, the public-private partnership at this point is so important. Companies itself has so many technologies and so many money, let's say, and so many funding, but we need the help of course, the government and the NGOs to create the stakeholder capitalism and reach all these people.
Thanks a lot. I absolutely agree with your points of view, and also here in this case, it would be also interesting to maybe know actually what initiatives, like for example, we have heard about Guangyuan or Hey Alta, but also the international NGO Aflatun International. So do you also have a specific approach in addressing this literacy gap, maybe also in developing countries where it's also existing? I mean, you told already about this gamification approach for children, but on the other hand, there are also groups in society, except for children, who are also disadvantaged. So what can actually initiatives do to address this? What would be your thoughts on this?
Yes, thanks, Yasmin. So from our side, I also mentioned that we're creating digital literacy. We prefer to call it skills course. And we're trying to make it as basic as possible. We're not building it for a specific, for people with prior knowledge as far as literacy is concerned. We're building it for those who know little to nothing in digital skills, so that they can learn something. You know, they can learn how to even talk about digital financial skills. We're building a course on digital financial skills. How do you transact business online? You know, because sometimes we lose the fact that digital money is equivalent to physical money, right? Sometimes when you sell or buy things online, you lose that essence of knowing the two. And so our approach basically is to gradually build a digital, build these courses with varying modalities that these people who fall within the age can access. As well, we're building the capacity of the teachers and trainers who are actually in direct contact with these parents and beneficiaries, and they become the agent of change on the ground. So we believe that by building their capacity, they'll in turn also affect those on the ground. And at this point, I asked that we're open to possibly Microsoft reaching us, working together as well to see if you have sort of any apps or like any initiatives as you see ongoing, where we can add our content to it as a way for you to spread out, because Aflatun operates on a social franchise model where we build and then we support other organizations as well to implement it on the ground as a way of reducing the digital illiteracy. That's how we look at it. We're building in a way that anyone can use to help them solve this particular issue.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So actually, indeed, like inclusive approaches are possible, as we see. So here we talked a lot about the education sector, but now maybe also based on your backgrounds and experience, maybe I can ask Miguel and Van if like what actually can be done in this health tech sector, which is like really emerging in the current time. So imagine like getting a vaccination appointment, for example. I know many people in Germany who actually need support in getting this vaccination appointment. So what can actually be done in the area of health tech? Maybe Miguel or Van, if you have some thoughts on that.
Miguel, you want to go first?
Yeah, why not? I have many thoughts, to be honest. I also have many thoughts on the elderly topic, but we'll get to that later. Let's see, regarding healthcare, I think the major issue here is regarding the data protection. I see how there is like a very thin line. I'm not an expert on the topic, but I see how there is a very thin line in, I don't know. So because sometimes I think about it and I say it would be way more efficient to have all our data in the cloud and just a robot to scan everyone's illnesses and generate some takeaways out of this. Maybe we would have spotted COVID way faster, or there is a way to understand what symptoms come out of COVID, you know, or many other illnesses. But there is a data protection issue there. So that's my main conflict regarding healthcare. I think that it's super relevant, it's super necessary, but I have the conflict there of what happens with our personal data, you know. I don't know. Those are my thoughts basically.
May I add something? So I think regarding this issue, there should be or there's a lack of an opt-in process. So I do not have the possibility to share my data even if I want to. And I think if there would be a possibility to say, well, I'm aware that I'm giving you my data and I agree on that, then this would partially solve that issue. And right now it's the case that we have a lot of data protection, especially in Germany. We are highly bureaucratic in everything. And I think that would be an alternative to really decide whether I want to opt in and give my data.
I've seen actually some startups, mostly in the US, where you can opt to sell your data, and I think it's something very, very interesting. No, say okay, I want to sell my data to healthcare companies, and you're actually profiting out of it, and I think it's something that I mean, in my mind, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think Van, also you wanted to add something, as I recognized.
Yeah, well, from my work experience in China, I think to get everyone vaccination, you need to prioritize. You should first prioritize the most needed group, like who should get vaccines first, who should get vaccines second, because I think the supply is because you if you want to give everyone a vaccination, it takes some time to manufacture billions or billions of doses of vaccine. So you have to make sure you have a list so that people can go to the vaccination sites step by step, and after several phases, you can have everyone you can have everyone vaccinated. I think there will be a way to realize it, and that's actually this is what China is doing right now. From last year, I think people, first of all, children, healthcare workers, and all people get vaccinated. After that, people with public duties have their vaccination, and after that, all people can have appointment and can get everything done.
Yeah, I think thanks a lot. I think that there are really different approaches and also attitudes concerning this, because of some like argument, especially related to data security. Some put the response to the virus first, and so it's really a multi-ranging topic. And
it's not a church in China.
Yeah. Yes. So that's what you actually told us about. So also currently, as like the internet has actually become like a key means to access information and to gain insights into like important topics. It's a tool for freedom of expression and opinion also. So the United Nations has recognized the internet as a human right. So having access should be a human right according to the Declaration of the United Nations. So given this, do you think actually, because now we have a diverse set of sectors, but still, what do you think, how can actually policies really incentivize like bridging this? Like also, should solutions in bridging the divide be more demand side oriented, so really offering the consumers more opportunities, etc., or supply side by, for example, incentivizing certain infrastructures to high-speed broadband networks, for example? So what do you think, how can actually policies support also like local initiatives maybe, or really incentivize bridging this divide? Maybe like also would be interesting, for example, excuse me? Maybe it would be like interesting to hear, for example, from, I think, Bishra, do you want to say something, or were you on mute?
Yes, yes, I would like to add some opinions. If you could hear me well, I have some instability in my internet. As we are talking about the internet, it was so hilarious for me.
This is high-speed broadband connectivity, basically. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would say to your question, it should be supply side. I mean, as a short answer will be the supply side, but in the long answer will be like the expansion of internet connectivity drives significant positive effects for the wider economy. And we all aware of that. Therefore, public and private funding for high-speed internet infrastructure in underprivileged regions should be a priority. And so it doesn't have to be like a demand side, but the supply side. So the post-COVID-19 new normal, and in which the digital access is increasingly essential to daily life, should derive even greater momentum for stakeholders to collaborate in such financing efforts. So it is critical that the dialogue between the sectors and across industries on the priority actions be accelerated in order to join forces in tackling the digital divide holistically. And only with all the stakeholders playing their part will reduce digital divide in the midterm is more essential than ever to achieve this ambitious goal. So again, I would maybe repeat myself, but public-private cooperation is critical to advancing the digital inclusion agenda in today's new normal. And there's no one size fits for all to bridge this gap between digital equity. So digital development and connectivity should be the top priority, and only with the strong collaboration and partnership, it will be meaningful to close this gap. That will be my opinion.
Yeah, thanks. I also agree that it actually needs a very integrated approach in really tackling this. I think that Alex, you have also raised your hand.
Yes, quick question first for everyone. Operational question. Would it be okay if now or a bit later, because before we finish, if we could all turn on our camera so we can take a screenshot, if you're all comfortable with that? That's my first quick question. And then also another question for the speakers. Are you all comfortable if after this event, we all connect you together with an email? Because I think I've heard that, there's some really great crossover in you guys' work, and I think it would be great that you're all connected, and then you can first individually decide if you'd like to connect with each other and have a further talk if there's even some ideas for project collaborations down the line, or just to get more information from each other. That's okay with you guys, if you could let us know that too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, thanks, Alex. So yeah, I think really this integrated approach is very important. And also when you consider the fact actually maybe these large corporations, they also like quite active in the area of venture capital. So maybe like this venture capital, like investing into impact funds, which later on invest really in things related to bridging this digital divide, can also be an option. I think with like rising startups in like health tech, etc. So I think that this definitely might also be an option. So if I see that Maxwell has also raised his hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I heard what Bezra said, but for me personally, I'm geared more toward the demand side, purely because it can be done faster. And get more people involved before we even look at the infrastructure, because usually infrastructure takes a bit of time, trying to set up all these broadbands and trying to get everyone to follow even, let's say, the modern kind of deciding even what infrastructure a particular location needs. It's a bit of a policy change, if you like. We're talking about global warming and how certain things might probably affect the environment and things like that. And these discussions get political and they may take some time. But if you look on the other side, there are dozens of people who are creating different learning platforms and finding ways that people can engage either with or without internet. So if I had to choose between the demand and the supply side, I'll go with the demand side because it has a very faster turnover. It can be done faster, it can be scaled faster, it can get more people involved, whilst we try and wait for all the politics and discussion about strategy and everything to be resolved, But anyway, that's what I think. I don't.
Yeah, thanks. That's very interesting too. Like, I mean, that was actually also the purpose of this lab, to really also see that there are like very different perspectives, and like actually we see that in this round that an integrated approach is necessary. So I think maybe Maike, if you would like to add something.
Yes, I'd like to add something. So what I'm missing in all these discussions and conversations is this systemic approach. So in my research, I focus on innovation system and systemic approaches to accelerate basically a transformation towards sustainability. And I think what's really, or what we observe even with Hey Alta, is that there are people who want to create things, who are really engaged and who want to change things. And there are other people and communities and organizations who are really path dependent. And I think when we, and this sounds a bit, I don't know, emotional, but if we understand that we're all in this together, and if we neglect one part of the world, and if we treat the environment bad, it comes all back to us. And I think we should really start about thinking of creating new narratives, and to change the way we think of what is possible, or what is right or wrong. And I think that it's the same issue with these leasing contracts you mentioned, Miguel, and the organizations. There are people who say, well, we're just leasing these devices, we have no chance to donate them. But in reality, no one asked whether there's a possibility to do so. And then we meet other people who say, well, I think it doesn't work, but then they are engaged and they ask at their supplier, and then hooray, we got some devices. So I think what is really important is to create this transformative knowledge, and to create and to educate these change makers.
Yeah, also thank you. So actually, I think that like quite summed up all the findings, or like the opinions regarding this question. So before actually, because given the time, I think we exceeded a bit. So I just have like one last question to really finalize the Q&A session also. So I think like when we look back at this title, like leveraging local solutions on a global level, I've also highlighted that the digital divide leaves those behind most in need. And here we look specifically at the developing countries. So we can see that their response to the virus is worsened by this digital divide, and like informing people about the virus, about social distancing measures, telehealth, it's really worse in developing countries. So what do you think, how can actually the private sector, but also these initiatives, how can they help in bridging this divide between developing and industrialized nations? So maybe of the private sector's CSR initiatives in developing countries that are actually indeed effective, or maybe sometimes also more related to like whitewashing kind of. So what would be your thoughts on that? Maybe like especially when I look at this initiative by Maxwell, like Affiliation International, I mean, so what do you actually expect from the most powerful nations, or also the European Union, for example? How can they support developing countries in actually their responsiveness towards the virus? So what were your personal experiences?
Thanks again, Yasmin. Yes, I think one thing we noticed is that, as I said, the way we try to create our content is to give something to everyone, right? And sometimes these companies or organizations, they need that extra support to be able to contextualize the resource, the content to suit even delivery via SMS or even via any mobile or web application like that. And I think what's for example, the European Union or whichever agency organization can do is to give these countries or organizations access to, let me say funding, let me be blunt, say funding and expertise right, to be able to continuously churn out the content in the way that works for them. Because Affleton can only create so much, right? Because we are an NGO, we of course also depend on funding to be able to create these resources for free. So the more support we get to create diverse content in a way that works for them, equally they need access to these funding and expertise to be able to further contextualize it for their context, because sometimes the content makes more sense when it speaks to the context of the person using it. For example, you don't want to create content where all the money signs or symbol in it is dollar and euro, right? For them to be able to convert it to, in this case, the Ghana cedi or the Rwandan shilling or the Liberian dollar or something like that, they need the skills and the funding to be able to further break this down in the way that suits them. And one thing we notice also that if you talk about SMS in this case, SMS sounds very simplistic, but you'll be surprised that it takes more to be able to deploy SMS than even deploying, let's say, multimedia elements in this case, right? Because you need to go through the telco to make this possible. And these telcos are stifled by policies on the ground and how you can't get access to certain numbers. So we have to go virtual and different things like this. Just to put it, just to sort of summarize it, we could use support as far as funding is concerned, and also expertise, especially for our beneficiaries on the ground in contextualizing these resources, I should say.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think that's funding is definitely something important where they can assist, but when you also look at these powerful corporations such as Amazon or like Microsoft that we have here, I think that actually indeed in the countries they operate in, I assume that they can also take a leading role in this kind of initiatives. When we look also at Facebook, for example, Facebook, I mean, there is a debate on that, I know, for example, especially data security related issues. But on the other hand, sometimes it's like a viable option to at least assure connectivity in these areas. So maybe some thoughts before closing from the private sector as well, maybe Bishra or Miguel, if you have some thoughts on that, how it can be, how you can contribute to bridging the developed industrialized gap.
I can jump in. So, I mean, my way is that the best way that these companies can enter this infrastructure conversation, I guess, is by creating employment. And whenever Amazon launches a new fulfillment center, everyone knows that you're just creating hundreds and hundreds of jobs just by opening one building, no? So I guess that the conversation should go in the same way. It's I can see how it's, I don't know, that can be somewhat blurry when you're talking about, like factories, for instance, in Asia and such. But I think that the only way to actually tackle this without entering the field of the international cooperation is by investing in developing countries.
Yeah, I agree with that too. But on the other hand, still, there's like some criticism concerning these investments if they are like really. I mean, it's always totally the case with the CSR initiatives, especially when it's like data, like if you share your data and if you do not even ask some kind of people because you just think, okay, they might be okay with that, it's definitely an issue. But on the other hand, it can be beneficial. So again, two-sided. So if you have any thoughts on that, somebody else, then I think Bishra, maybe you.
I mean, when it comes to data, actually, it is a very controversial issue. I mean, everyone is scared, and we all know that the Facebook problem with the Cambridge Analytica and intervening into U.S. elections. So that's always what we think, and I think it has also two legs. Like, first one is the data that you shared on social platforms that is used sometimes against you or for you. I mean, it depends how you look at it. And there's also the data that you shared with the companies that you trust, let's say, and they actually don't use this data for any commercial purposes. So it has to be, I think, divided into different parts. So for example, when you share your data in a healthcare system, and if this, for example, AI machine gives you some algorithms and says you that you have these diseases and here it's the cure, then that's okay. I mean, you will be happy to share it in advance so that maybe you will get the medicine earlier, and you will get better. So, but on the other hand, I mean, when you post your photo and it is used for your, you know, your face is used for some other purposes and you will be offended of it, then that is a whole another issue. So it has to be separated. And at some points, of course, it has to be regulated. But I think when we talk about digital, I mean, decreasing the digital gap, digital literacy, so sharing the data shouldn't be that much of a problem. I mean, because we are not talking about like having a fun photo with the friends or sharing your birthday with some strangers. I mean, it's just it's the data that you gave to the company or the government, so that they use it only for you or some for other purposes. So I mean, maybe we have to even increase the knowledge about what does it mean to share the data, or what kind of data is a personal data and what kind of data are not. So that would be maybe even better to understand what's going on in the world. But mostly the problematic ones are the ones on the social platforms.
Yes, thanks a lot for this, Bishra, because I think that we in Germany, we are kind of obsessed with data security. That's like my impression, at least. And but on the other hand, I think like the social networks, they are of importance, especially in developing countries, when you consider that, for example, they have the highest penetration rate of social media networks. Facebook, for example, in the African continent is like the largest base for this company. So there can be some alignments, but on the other hand, yeah, maybe for some countries, these issues are not, they just take a different narrative. I think that's how we can conclude or sum up this question. And like, given the time, I think we already exceeded 20 minutes. I'm really sorry if you had something else to do, but I think that we had a really interesting dialogue with diverse set of backgrounds and also diverse national backgrounds also. And I think we have also seen that we can get links between the panelists, like especially like looking at the private sector, public sector, this NGO that Maxwell just introduced to us, maybe some links to the private sectors, and also one from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So I think that was very interesting today, and I hope that like from this dialogue, there like that you have like gotten some key takeaways, or like special, or that you realized some areas which you have not been aware of before. So like, thanks everyone again for really making it today. And especially I would like to thank the 6 panelists. I think one, she had to leave because what I can also understand, because it's already 11 p.m. So like, I think even later in China. So again, thanks to Van, although she cannot hear me now. But yeah, also thanks to Bishra, Miguel, Maike, Maxwell for joining today. It was very nice to have you here.
Thank you for organizing, Jasmine.
Thank you so much.
Can we quickly take a photo again, guys? And if possible, those that can turn your screen on quickly, if you're comfortable with that. And if anyone isn't happy with the photos, please send us a message and we can blur your name or faces out. Yep, so you guys are ready? Hang on. You guys are ready? Okay, I'll take this ready. Okay, there we go. Taking a screenshot of all of us.
Thank you,
Thank
Alex.
you.
Thanks, Alex.
Okay, thanks a lot. And yeah, I hope that now you all have a nice weekend, and yeah, have a nice dinner also. I think most of you are now having dinner. That's what I assume.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.